Planning and execution of blind pilotage and average.
Radar clearing ranges are similar drawn at the maximum or minimum distance from the radar conspicuous object to keep the ship clear of danger. These are drawn as broken lines. So, the example of broken lines can be seen from the illustration below. Alteration. Wheel over positions are calculated and plotted on the chart as per visual pilotage. A radar conspicuous mark is selected as close as possible to the wheel over position. A pec line is then drawn through the wheel over position in example figure 2a, parallel to the new course and the cross index range measured. This wheel over range is plotted on the display as a pec line parallel to the new course. When the selected mark reaches this line, the wheel should be put over and the ship brought round to the new course, by which time the mark should be on the firm line denoting the parallel index for the new course. Responsibilities. In normal circumstances, the navigating officer is the pilot of the ship, although if he is not a navigation subspecialist, the duty pilotage devolves on the captain, who may either perform it himself or at his discretion depute any officer of the ship complement to do so. No matter what the blind pilotage organization may be, the sub-specialist navigating officer (NO) is always the pilot of the ship, and thus he should also be the blind pilotage officer or BPO. Where no navigation sub-specialist is born, the officer appointed for the navigating duties should also be the blind pilotage officer. In normal circumstances, however, as responsibility for pilotage is clearly vested in the captain, he may wish to delegate the often blind pilotage duty to the sum officer. If so, the captain must also clearly set out in his standing orders the circumstances envisaged to ensure that it is absolutely clear who is responsible and when.
The conduct of blind pilotage. The navigating officer should remain on the bridge in poor visibility and conduct the blind pilotage. From there, it is essential to have another officer who is suitable by training and experience as a blind safety officer. In the operations room, where he can monitor the blind pilotage and back up the navigating officer on the bridge. The blind safety officer will need to be in touch with the surface plot to assist with the identification of radar contacts. The essence of this arrangement is that members of the team do not change position if the visibility changes. The navigating officer conducts the pilotage from the bridge whatever the weather or visibility. In good visibility, the blind safety officer acts as a useful check on the visual plan and builds confidence in this team and command. In marginal visibility, the bridge team continues to make use of any visual information to supplement information from the radar. In near visibility, the NO conducts the blind pilotage from the bridge radar screen, monitored by the blind safety officer. If reports from the NO and blind safety officer disagree, immediate action to stop the ship may be necessary until the position has been accurately determined. So the blind pilotage aim and duties. Blind pilotage requires a high degree of organization and teamwork so that only are the responsibilities of individuals clearly defined, but also all relevant factors may be considered while assessing the ship's position and her future movements. Suitable arrangements to achieve this are set out out and table 1. This may have to be adjusted depending on the class of ship, the personnel available, and the above comments.
General principles. To ensure success, the ship must be accurately navigated along a pre-arranged track. In comparatively unrestricted waters, this is best done by constant fixing using radar in conjunction with other aids such as DECA and echo sounder. In narrow waters and during final stage of an anchorage, the delays inherent in fixing are acceptable to the BPO. The following principles apply. Number 1. The navigating officer should navigate or pilot the ship. Number 2. The captain should have easy access to the blind pilotage position and the NO. Number 3. The ship should be combed from the compass platform because it is only on the bridge that the feel of the ship can be retained. Number 4. The captain, blind safety officer, OOW, and the officer in the charge of the anti-collision plant should all be carefully briefed before the passage by NO so that they are all entirely familiar with the visual blind plan. 5. Navigational charts with NO's prepared visual blind plan must be available on the bridge and in the operation room. 6. The whole pilotage team should be exercised as frequently as possible in clear weather and visual and blind techniques. Only in this way can be necessary confidence in the system be built up which will allow runs of some complexity to be conducted safely in blind conditions. 7. The BSO should be close up all the occasions of entering and leaving harbor and passage through narrow waters with special sea duty men are close up. The BP team should be regarded as part of special sea duty men. 8. There should be good communication between the blind pilotage position and the BSO and personnel manning navigational aids fitted elsewhere. 9. All members of the team should be encouraged to admit any doubts they may have regarding the information acquired from sensor. Blind pilotage planning. Number 1. Normal planning considerations for selection of track supply, blind and visual tracks should be the same to enable the transition from visual to blind or vice versa to be made at any time and also to allow one plan to be used to cross-check the other. 2. The number of course alternations should be kept to a minimum to reduce the workload in redrawing parallel and overlines. 3. Always try to have 2 parallel index lines where possible, one on each side of the track. This provides a check on measurement, mark identification, and can reveal index or linearity errors. 4. Objects to be used both for parallel index lines and for fixing must be carefully selected. They should be rather conspicuous and unchanged by varying heights of tide. Clearly mark on the chart the objects to be used for fixing and brief the assistant. Avoid if possible fixing by radar range and bearing on a single mark. Number 5. The range scales to be used require carefully consideration. Accuracy is greater at shorter range but mark pass more quickly than a distance, requiring more lines to be drawn. When operating on short range scales, it is essential that the PPO frequently switches to longer range to keep aware of developing situations. Changes of range scales and parallel index marks should be planned and marked in the notebook. The stage to which charts will be changed must also be carefully considered. Tidal stream and current should be worked out on the noted for calculation of course to steer for the calculation of AP. This should be displayed on the chart and recorded in the notebook. Number 7. Expected soundings, allowing for height of tide and calibration of echo sounder should be noted for each leg. The possibility of being early or late should also be borne in mind. Number 8. All hazard along the track should be boxed in by clearing ranges under cross-index ranges listed in the notebook. Number 9. Details of a lights and fog signal should be taken from the Admiralty list of light chart and entered in the notebook. 10. The chart should be drawn up using standard symbols. See Table 2. 11. The notebook should contain the full plan, neatly and legibility record in chronological order. Sketches of the both chart and radar display can be of great assistance to the BPO in evaluating the picture. 12. Track plotting for entering leaving harbor should not appear on the same chart simultaneously, otherwise confusion will arise. 13. Clearing range should be simple, safe, and easily interrupted. 14. Object used for U-wheel over should be conspicuous, easily identifiable, and suitably located adjacent to the truck.
Blind pilotage execution. Number 1. Carry out a time check to synchronize clocks and watches. Number 2. On the radar display, keep one set of parallel index lines drop up ahead of those in use. Any more will clutter the display excessively. Rub out lines as soon as they are finished with. Number 3. Identify contacts early by range and bearing from charted object. An accurate EP is most useful aid in identification. Number 4. Fix at frequent intervals and immediately after a change of course. DR and EP ahead. A sustainable fixing procedure is BPO assistant. Standby fix in 1 minute. BPO. Roger using points ABC. BPO assistant writes this in notebook. BPO assistant fix now. BPO marks the point on face of the display. BPO assistant notes that time. BPO then range of the marks drawn in display passes. This BPO assistant record the range, plots the fix, and generates fresh doctor and EP. Blind pilotage execution. Number 5. Ship speed. One of the factors affecting the choices of ships speed will be the rate at which the BPO and his assistant are capable or dealing with the radar information. Number 6. Commentary and coning advice. Maintain a steady, unhurried, and precise flow in the information of the command. Distance of track. On track, course to maintain or regain. Distance and time to the next wheel over. New course and present. New course, clear shipping. Adjacent marks of hazard. Expected lights and sound signals. Expected depth and echo sounding minimum depths when fixing and result of fix. EP to next alteration. Maneuvering limit. 5 capables clear to 1 capable to port. If any doubt, say so, and if necessary, stop to the ship. Number 7. It must be appreciated that whatever the technique employed, a drift of line is likely to be detected less ready by radar than visual methods. 8. It is vital to pay attention to the echo sounder and less depth expected to the nearest, and land is usually the bottom. Blind pilotage exercises. To improve the reality of BP exercises in the clear weather, the following points should not be forgotten. Save speed should be maintained. Fixes should be recorded and plotted at the same frequency as for actual blind pilotage. A full debrief should take place and completion of the practice. Blind anchorage. A blind anchorage should be planned in the same way as a visual anchorage, but remember to allow stem to radar instead of stem to standard when plotting the let go position. The parallel index lines should be used to guide the ship to anchorage position, and she must stay back in the clearing range. Distance to run can be obtained by using a dead range on a sustainable object ahead, or by measuring the progress of a radar conspicuous object along a parallel index line. Full details must be shown on the chart and the notebook. Distances to must be marked on the face of display. This can be backed up by the range stub, but reliance on the stove alone is dangerous because the reference is a loss as soon as the strobe is required for any measurement. Navigational records. When carrying out a pilotage passage, the navigating officer BPO will be too busy to maintain a continuously written record. It is essential that such as a record should be kept and on comparatively unrestricted waters and normally sufficient for this record to be kept on the chart itself by plotting and fixing and noting the position and times of alteration of course and speed and other relevant data in addition to the record in the navigational record book. This procedure involving through and medical chart work is in a fact no different from the which should be practicing during any pilotage passage. In more restricted condition, however, the navigation officer BPO running momentarily to the captain should be recorded on tape, if possibly. For example, number 7, buoy fine on port bow, 8 cable ship, 50 yards to port of track, steering 136 to regain. In conjunction with the navigating officer, BPO's prepared notebook to the chart to the record fixes and courses and speed. This record should be suffice for any subsequent analysis required.
Lastly, horizontal display where horizontal displays are available in the operations room. The whole passage may be prepared in advance on a series of overlays. The bridge safety officer's assistant changing this at appropriate times. The drawback of this method is that all tracking and other additional marks made by the bridge safety officer are lost at each change. When most horizontal displays in use in the Royal Navy, the picture is not sufficiently precise for accurate line pilotage and should not be used. So in conclusions, for merchant ships, the regulations for pilotage are laid down by the nationality or national authority or the shipping company. And in the orders of the port concerned, recommendations on pilotage are also made from time to time by IMO. Regulations are for merchant ships frequently require compulsory pilotage, although masters who have considerable knowledge of a particular port may be exempted for that port, as maybe certain ships are regularly trading on the coast concerned. In most of ports, it is the usual practice for the pilot to take full control of the handling of the ship between the pilot boarding place, usually shown in the chart and the berth. The general aim to the master should be to ensure that the expertise of the pilot is fully supported by the ship's bridge team. The officer of the watch is required to cooperate closely with the pilot and keep an accurate check of the vessel's position and movements. If there is any doubt as if the pilot's actions are intentions, this should be clarified immediately. If any doubt still remains, it is up to the master and or the officer of the watch to take the appropriate action to ensure the safety of the ship.